We are in Sudan, in Khartoum, and I'm here with a very interesting gentleman that hosted me with his family for a few days here in Khartoum, the capital of Sudan. It's an interesting time to cycle across Sudan because there is lots of changes happening. But without further any ado, let's meet. What's your name?
Hello, I'm Firas Faisal. I'm a Sudanese activist, and as David was telling you, it's a very interesting time to visit Sudan because a revolution is happening in Sudan at this time.
Can you explain briefly for the people that are not familiar with the history of Sudan, briefly, what was the political situation before December? It's my understanding that protesting became started in December.
Yes,
What was there before December, and why the people started to protesting?
before December, there was a military dictatorship regime, al-Bashir's regime. They came in 1989 through a military coup, and they stayed in power for 30 years. And it was a tyrannical regime which caused all of the Sudanese people to suffer, except those who are loyal to the regime.
Sure.
So we've had enough. So we started protesting to take take to throw out the regime.
And my understanding was that the casus belli for the protesting to start was the increase of price in bread. Is that correct?
It started because of economical circumstances, but also the people who joined later joined because they want social justice, they want more freedom, they want to express their opinions. So the regime used to rule us by oppression. If you say something, you're arrested, you're tortured, you might even get killed and thrown in a ditch somewhere. So
And fast forward, in December of 2018, the people started to take their unhappiness to the street of the cities in Sudan, yeah? And fast forward a few months, then what happened in April?
in April 6th, there was an anniversary of a former revolution, and everyone went to the army headquarters and started a sit-in there. And the NISS forces tried to attack the sit-in several times, and they used to come and start shooting, and there were clashes between them and the army.
Okay, so let's be clear here. So the protest was peaceful.
Yeah.
And the army, some of the ranks of the army, they took the side of the protester, and they were fighting against the, what's the name,
NISS.
NISS, which is the guard of the president. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. The mid and lower ranked army officers took a side with the protesters and started protecting them. And so the NISS, which guards the regime, plus other militias that are formed to protect the Islamists who were allied with the regime, they were all trying to attack the protesters and break the sit-in to protect the regime, but lucky for us, the mid-ranked and the lower-ranked officers took our side.
And then what happened basically? Because now there is a military council that is ruling the government. So fast forward a little bit, what happened?
Okay, what happened later is when the sitting started, al-Bashir wanted to find a way.
Al-Bashir was the former
Al-Bashir was
president.
the former president, yeah. He wanted to break the sit-in with any way possible. He wanted to use force. So one of the transitional military council leaders has said that al-Bashir said that according to his Islamic beliefs, he is allowed to kill half of the population in order to save the other half. So he wanted to just wipe out everyone there, and so that's when they knew that he had to go, and that's when they took him out through a military coup as well.
So they refused to follow his order, and they arrested him.
Yes, they refused to follow his order and they arrested him. But the problem that we're facing now is that they're still refusing, or they're still stalling to hand over the power to a civilian government.
To the people.
Yeah.
So now there is a military council in place that came with basically a military coup that took out the former president. But the protests are still going on because the people are afraid that this military council is just another coup, and someone else will just replace the former president, and nothing is gonna change. Is that correct?
Exactly. That's what we are afraid of, because we've had enough with military regimes already. We've had a military regime in charge for 30 years, and we're demanding change. We need change, because we have a resourceful country and we have everything that we need to build a great country, and we need people who are able to do that. And military personnel are not exactly the people to run a country. They have a job which is to protect the country, but not to run things.
Yes. And do you think so? The protests are still going on, and can you give us a scale of the protest? I've seen there are many people that there is a sit-in day and night.
Yeah.
And how many people are in this gathering in any given day on average?
Well, according to telecommunication companies, they said that there were around 5,800,000 phones on that area. So the average is during the night time the numbers go a little bit lower, but then at the day they start increasing again and they reach up to 6-7 millions.
Okay, and Sudan, it's a country where the predominant religion is Islam, and there is a Sharia law in place. And I've seen that sorry for this. I was very surprised that when I passed through where there is the demonstration, the protest, there are a high number of women. And can you tell us a little bit about the role of women in the protest?
Well, the women played a vital role in the protest. First of all, according to some statistics, they say that around 70% of the protesters were women. And so women played an essential role. They worked as medics. They provide food for the people at the sitting. They support us, and they do equal parts as men do. And so according to the outdated understanding of the Sharia law, women are not even supposed to go out to be heard, and that's exactly why we started protesting. We want to change that.
Just to make sure, your faith is Islam, yeah? You're a Muslim.
Yeah, I'm a Muslim, but my problem is not with Islam. My problem is with the understanding of Islam.
The interpretation.
The interpretation of Islam by others, who take advantage of that to stay in power, or to raise more money, or to control or dominate people more.
And you said that you're an activist.
Yes.
Did you have to face any problems or challenges because of your active participation in the demonstration and the protest?
Yes, on 17th of January I went to protest, and that day I got arrested and tortured. we were like 30 protesters running inside the house to hide from the NISS forces, and that's when they broke inside the house and they started shooting bullets on the ceiling, and they arrested us and they tortured us.
Okay, that's very unfortunate. And I've seen actually your phone, and you have evidence of the physical torture, and
Yes.
your hand was broken.
Yes, my hand was
And
broken.
I can still see the bump here.
Yes.
Where your hand was broken.
Yes, it was broken.
And so are you hopeful that these protests will actually result in the people having the power in let's say 6 months, 1 year, or 2 years? There will be like free parties and democratic elections. I guess it's the aim, no?
Yeah, it's the aim, and we're hopeful and we're determined to making that happen. And otherwise, we'll just stay at the sitting, and we'll keep protesting until we get our demands.
And do you think, do you think the international community can do anything in support of this revolution?
Well, of course, the international community can always apply more pressure to the Transitional Military Council to hand over the power to the people and prevent Sudan from slipping into chaos.
Okay. And do you think, I don't know if you are aware of what's the news that are on the international media, and do you think the international media are doing a fair job in covering the news?
Unfortunately, they're not, because we've been protesting since December, and we hardly had any media coverage. We only relied on social media to get our word out, and they're starting to pay more attention, but it's still not they're still not doing what they should be doing, like transforming the whole picture to the world.
Okay. So hopefully our friends that are watching this video will help spreading the news. And thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to have a good insight of what's going on in Sudan, what's the current situation, and we wish you well, and hopefully the people will achieve their aim. And I've seen that they are working very hard, because they've been protesting for a long time now, ever since December. So thank you very much, and thank you also for giving me a home for the week in Khartoum.
Thank you for staying with me.
Ciao, ciao, ciao.
See you. Bye. Hi, everybody. Since David was here the last time and we shot the last interview about the situation in Sudan, I'm very sad and frustrated to say that the situation has declined overall since that time due to the acts of the Transitional Military Council, which is basically a military junta formed of a militia leader and generals of the army, the Sudanese army, where they have formed a council which they take control of the power after the ouster of the previous regime of al-Bashir. And when they took over the power, they presented themselves as a part of the revolution and claimed to be a part of the change that is going to happen when building the new Sudan. But unfortunately, later, after they have committed the genocide in the middle of Khartoum, where more than 100 people lost their lives, and had their corpses thrown in the river with cement blocks attached to them to prevent them from floating. A number of women were raped. There were also organized campaigns to spread fear and target activists all around Khartoum. And also the internet has been blocked out almost completely in Sudan at the day of the genocide. And the situation is getting more complex as the military junta receives more support from countries in the Gulf, such as Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, who are known to be enemies of reformists in the region, because they have formerly contributed in oppressing revolutions to prevent democratic change, because a democratic change in the region is a threat to their regimes. So I hope that everyone can help us in raising awareness about what's happening in Sudan due to the communication restrictions, and we want everyone to pray for Sudan, and yeah, as I said, to raise awareness, spread news about what's happening in Sudan. Thank you, everybody.